been on the rise across Nigeria, but the situation became more complex in the past 2 months. The upward trend in the prices of these staples as well as other products has weakened the purchasing power of many citizens, making it very difficult for many households in the country to afford daily meals. Tonight, let's hear from the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, on what the federal government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, is doing to boost agric production across the country. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Right. So it became very important for us to speak with you so Nigerians can understand, grasp exactly what is happening and what the federal government is doing to address this situation. So as we speak, what is government doing to ensure food availability and affordability?
Well, let me first start by saying that the current crisis that we have is something of critical concern to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the federal government of Nigeria. All hands are on deck, really, to see the situation controlled. What we have actually did not start today. Let me go back memory lane and take us back to just a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when COVID reared its head and impacted on food supply all over the world, actually. And then shortly thereafter, in 2021 and 2022, we had the disaster, the flood disaster that happened across the country. That also impacted on agriculture and production. And thereafter, we also had the issue of a policy that, had cash in short supply, the Naira redesign between September, October of 2022 and also up to February, March of 2023. That had farmers had to crash their prices, and they didn't make a lot of money, and some didn't even have money to cultivate in the 2023 wet season. So that brought about a supply deficit in terms of agricultural commodities and produce. Now, what all this is playing is an issue of supply and demand. We have always had a gap of demand and supply, between demand and supply, in most of our commodities. But what we have seen today was as a result of acute and a combination of several factors over the period of time. Usually, the short supply of food portends its head is a cyclical issue that comes around May and June, just before the cultivation for the wet season. However, we see this happening as early as February and March. So we assume there are several factors that have contributed to that. One of which I would say that we are faced with affordability issue, not availability as it is. You could see that there were a lot of hoarding that went on during the time. Even now, as I speak, some of the raid on some of the warehouses, especially in Kano, that was made, contributed to some of the commodities prices coming down considerably. At the same time, there's some undocumented export. Export in itself is good. It's good for the country. This, even what we have today, is good for us so that we can export commodities. But we have to be self-sufficient first. And also, if there are any exports that will be done, government should derive benefits from it. So we are challenged today by issue of land being decreasing in terms of climate change, in terms of desertification, in terms of flooding, where also population is growing, where we grow by at least 7 million every year. So population growth is another thing where habitation has increased land use for habitation and decreased land use for cultivation. In addition, also, we have the issue of insecurity and terror in terms of kidnapping and banditry, of which Mr. President has already initiated steps to combat these issues. As I'm speaking to you, the issue of agro rangers, forest rangers, and also the armed forces have been mandated to take care of the situation. And I think we have seen a lot of successes in that. Just the other day, the governor of Katsina had informed us that the people have gone back to farm. At least about 70% have been recovered in Katsina. So we are looking at those successes, and we intend to assiduously impact on the dry season cultivation so that we can improve on our production, and also on the wet season.
All right. When you appeared before the Joint Committee of the National Assembly to defend your ministry's budget last December, you told the lawmakers that the database of farmers benefiting from agricultural intervention programs of the federal government is corrupt and politicized. I mean, meaning the database consists of names of politicians who are not even farmers. What have you done to clean up the data?
Well, in the interim, what we have done is we have submitted these data that we have with us. We collaborated with state governors. We invited state governors to come and express interest in all of our interventions. And we initiated a committee made up of officials of the state government. In fact, we have asked the governors to be the chairman of those committees or their representatives, and a long list of committee members starting from the local level, traditional leaders, community leaders, commodity associations, to look at those data and clean it up and present to us. This is an interim measure that we have done, but as soon as we're over with the dry season intervention, we intend to holistically come up with a farmer data that is reliable, that will take care of other biometrics, NIN, BVN, and also geolocations of the farm. We have done a situation where you first and foremost locate the farm, and then you know who is on that farm. You don't identify the farmer and then later go and identify the farm. First and foremost, identify the farmland, and then you geolocate that farmer on that farmland. So we are going to do a very holistic program to identify not only the farmer, but all stakeholders in the agricultural space, which also includes the agro dealers, and the commodity traders, and so on and so forth. So we have, and even extension workers, we are going to have a complete data for those stakeholders in the agricultural space.
All right, so when you clean up this data, how do you intend to identify original farmers, and how do you intend to reach them?
Well, like I said, the program is going to be similar to what a census is. Today we have so many data that have captured individuals, and some have professions as farmers. You look at the one of such data is the one at the National Population Commission. NIMSI also has data. INEC has data. We're trying to look at those ones and see where the farmers do exist. And then we go down to the grassroots. We go, like I said, identify the farmlands first, and then you attach the farmers. You find out who the farmers are on that particular land. So if you're a farmer, you don't have a land, so you are not a farmer really. You must have a land. So we identify the lands first, and then we register the farmers.
All right, that's fair enough. Nigeria has 15 wheat-producing states. Let me ask, what is government doing to stimulate wheat production?
Well, let me say this. We have launched the dry season farming in, I think 5th of December, when we did the phase 1 of the wheat. We have intervened in cultivating 120,000 hectares of wheat, in which we achieved 118,000. So that's about 97%. As I'm talking to you, the wheat is in the last stages of growth, and any moment from now, in the next 2-3 weeks, bountiful harvest of wheat will be available. And we have been receiving a lot of reports from 15 states that have participated, the wheat growing states. And hopefully we're going to have a bountiful harvest for the wheat. For the second phase, we are intervening in the support for 500,000 farmers of half a hectare each, which is 250,000 hectares for rice, and 55,000 hectares, which is 110,000 farmers for maize, and cassava is 35,000 hectares. We have a program with the African Development Bank, which is called the Nigerian Agricultural Growth Scheme. That will be 150,000, but there are certain shortcomings or gaps in that program that the federal government is going to intervene to cover those gaps, and at the same time give an additional 100,000 hectares for the rice. And so also applies to the maize, is 30,000 for the nags, and then 25,000 for federal government's intervention. So these are issues that we're looking at, that we can, at least in the next 3-4 months, we can have direct intervention from our programs, a production of 1 million tons of paddy rice in the next 3-4 months, and also about 150,000 tons of maize in the next 3-4 months. So these are shortcomings. These are short-term measures that we have done, and this is, let me say, this is direct intervention by the federal government. We have other farmers that are, without the intervention, are on their own cultivating the rice during this season, and we expect to get a total of about 2.5 million to 3 million tons of rice in the dry season.
All right, now that you've talked about the short-term measures, can you talk to me about the long-term measures in addressing this critical situation?
Well, one, I will say the one that is very critical and key, that just 2 days ago, Mr. President graciously approved the relocation of NALDA, which is the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, back to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. One of the major challenges that we have today is land preparation. And that, with that move, we are excited to see that NALDA has come back, because without land, like I said earlier during this program, we have a shrinking land. The land mass for agriculture is shrinking. And we have to assiduously expand it, because right now we have arable land of about 70 million hectares, but we are only cultivating about half of that, simply because of either growth, insecurity, flooding, habitation, and what have you, and even access. Some places are beyond the reach of people in terms of access, in terms of roads and what have you. So with the movement of NALDA to the Federal Ministry, I think we're going to have something that we look forward to, so that we can open up more lands. Then in addition also, when you look at the issue that we are doing now, the incentivizing farmers to go into dry season, we want to, at the end of the day, have 3 cycles of farming in some communities. And that is very, very achievable. So we are doing that, and going forward, we also have the mechanization policy of Mr. President, where we have 2 major policies that has been kickstarted. We signed an MOU with John Deere Tractor. They're in fact coming on the 6th of March for the second phase of negotiations on where they would supply 2,000 tractors per annum for the next 5 years, making a total of 10,000 tractors. In addition, we also have the GIP, the Green Imperative program, which is anchored by the Brazilian government with the support of the Deutsche Bank, which intends to spend about $1 billion on mechanization and tractorization program, where we will have service centers across the nation in all the 774 local governments of Nigeria. We'll have service centers not only for tractorization, but also for extension services, for aggregation, for storage, and what have you. So these are policies that we have kickstarted and will be rolled out very soon. Then in addition, there is this special agro-processing zones, the SAPZ. Currently, we have 7 states with FCT participating, but we have received expression of interest from all the remaining states. And that is another $1.5 billion program where we're going to create special agro-processing zones in peri-urban areas, not in the capitals, but in the peri-urban areas, where you will have production, aggregation, and processing. It's about time we move a step further where we encourage our raw materials, raw commodities being processed so that we can add value to it and can be competitive in the world market.
Right, so we'll come back to these long-term measures. There are a lot, and it's important that we talk about them. Let's stay on the short-term measures. We know the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is in the final stages of releasing 42,000 metric tons of assorted grains to support the vulnerable population across the country. You would agree with me, Honorable Minister, that we have always had issues with getting these interventionist measures to those who really need them. Now that there is no data, so to say, what would happen, or how will governments make sure these measures get to those who really need them?
Well, the data that we're talking about is data of farmers. These 42,000 metric tons you're talking about, we have them in our silos, in our storages. Bagging has commenced and in advanced stages. We have engaged both from my ministry, the Office of the National Security Advisor, and also NEMA, who have an index of vulnerability population around the country. We have drawn up the committees that will be responsible for distribution to the vulnerable Nigerians. And as I'm talking to you, as soon as this weekend, we shall roll out the first set of the distribution packages. We have maize, sorghum, millet, and gari for distribution, making up a total of 42,000 metric tons, which is about 1,400 trailers. So these will be flagged up, and they will be under severe scrutiny and watchful. The committees are made up of security agencies, CSOs, religious leaders. The media will also be invited in the committees at the various levels, whether it is state and also local governments. In addition, also, Mr. President has also mandated the committee to also look into assisting secondary schools, because they're also vulnerable population. So about a certain percentage, 3%, will go to secondary schools. So we are going to roll out in the next couple of days, and I assure you that this will be very transparent and it will be with utmost sincerity because of the situation that we find ourselves, and I think the direction and the leadership that was given to us by Mr. President, we will not leave any stone unturned.
All right. You may have said this in passing, but I want us to go back to it for better clarity so Nigerians can really understand the purpose of this conversation. And that's the federal government's efforts to boost dry season farming under the National Agricultural Growth Scheme Agro Pocket Project. I know the first phase of the dry season farming was launched in November 2023. So when will Nigeria start seeing results?
Well, like I just mentioned, the one that we launched actually it was first week of December, it will, like I said, harvest will be around second to third week of March. So what you're looking at is, like I said, even at the time, it's a period of anywhere between 100 days to 120 days. So that first set we will see in March, and the one that we're doing, we're going to launch in the first week of March, and we'll see the effects by May and June in some places. So I believe, like I said, we will have a total of about over 1.5 million tons just on direct government intervention. Now, let me talk about the program itself. The National Agricultural Growth Scheme, the NAGS, is made up of 4 commodities: wheat, rice, maize, and cassava. And also in the dry season. And also we have sorghum and soya and millet in the wet season. But in the dry season, the concentration here is that we have a lot of potential in doing irrigation farming with wheat and rice. Maize in some certain areas, but is not widely cultivated during the dry season. But for the wheat that we did a few months ago, we noticed that the program that gives 50%, like I said before, 50% of subsidy of all inputs, we calculated at that time, the subsidy, the inputs per hectare was valued at 360,000 naira. The inputs are seeds. Seeds are free, whether it is wheat or rice or maize or cassava. These seeds are provided free of charge by government. Then we have fertilizer and agrochemicals, that is the pesticides and the herbicides. The 3 items that I just mentioned were valued at 360,000. And the farmer was expected to pay 50% of that, and he gets 100% of those items. 50% of that translated to 180,000. What we saw at that time was because, of course, like I said, several factors have impacted on the financing of farmers that they couldn't come up precisely with that. So during that program, there was a lot of advantages that were taken on the farmers. So this time around, we looked at that challenge and we said, instead of giving 1 hectare to every farmer for the rice, let us double the number of farmers and then reduce the size of the land that we're going to intervene for the farmers. That is to bring down the size of the farmer to half a hectare for each farmer. Now, in the wheat, you require 10 bags of fertilizer per hectare. In the rice, we require less fertilization, 6 bags of fertilizer per hectare. So for half a hectare, the farmer will receive 3 bags of fertilizer. Now, with the NAGS provides for 50% subsidy, which is to say that the farmer will now pay for 1.5 bags, and then government will pay, under the NAGS program, 1.5 bags of fertilizer and half of the herbicide and also pesticide. So we came up with the idea that to incentivize and also promote dry season farming, Mr. President has graciously given us additional funds to now intervene. With the intervention funds, we are now asking the farmer, we are adding the 1.5 that the farmer is supposed to pay. We are also off-taking 1 bag and asking the farmer to pay for half a bag. When we made the calculation of half a bag about 2 weeks ago, it was 16,000 naira, and we are still sticking to that, despite the fact that the fertilizer has gone a bit about 10% in price. But we're working on the major suppliers of the fertilizer, that urea, for instance, Indorama and Dangote fertilizer. They have given us the word that they are going to reduce their prices, but we are still insisting that the farmer should pay that lower price of 16,000. So for half a hectare, you see what we're asking for the farmer to pay is 16,000 naira. And we believe farmers will be able to do that. And that is not the real reason that we ask farmers to do that, is because so that they can have a stake. Times of when you give inputs free of charge have gone, but the farmer will have a stake when he pays 16,000 naira. Not only that, we are also demanding that for every half a hectare, the farmer for the rice is to give us 2 bags of 75 kilograms each of paddy. That is to make 150 kilograms. So we're going to offtake the support that we're giving, and we're going to offtake from the farmers so that it will also go into our reserve. Then for the maize, we're doing the same program. We'll ask the farmers to pay for 16,000, but instead of, because the size of the sacks for maize is 100 kilograms, and 100 kilograms, and then the yield in maize is less than that of the rice. So we're asking maize farmer to give us, we are receiving 1 bag of 100 kilogram of maize from the maize farmer. So in a sense, this is how we are trying to incentivize them, and we're also going to provide water pumps to aid them, because irrigation farming is water-based. Some places have gravity irrigation, some but have the use of surface water pumps. So we're going to incentivize them by providing water pumps. So by and large, that is, I think we have received a lot of enthusiasm. We met this morning with all the stakeholders in this program, and they have expressed the desire for all the farmers' desire that they are willing and ready to participate in this program.
All right, Honorable Minister, let's take a break, and when we return, we will continue with this conversation. This is Politics Tonight, everyone. I'll be right back.
Our home, threatened by man's activities, with fears of mass extinction on the rise. On Green Angle, we examine the issues that affect our environment, seek solutions to put us on track to secure and restore a cleaner and greener world for generations to come.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. Tonight, we're focused on what the federal government is doing to boost agric production. And I've been speaking with Senator Abubakar Kyari, Minister of Agriculture and Food security. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for staying with us. Now let's talk about the death of extension officers and the impact of these on Nigeria's food security. I mean, these agents function as the link between farmers, research institutes and the government. What exactly is responsible for their shrinking numbers? Is it inadequate funding to support these officers or policy flip-flop by various governments? What exactly is happening?
Well, let me first start saying that extension workers are at the states and the local governments. We have also observed and of great concern on the shrinking of number of extension workers. I believe it's what is affecting so many of other professions within the local space, like teachers and things like that. By and large, extension workers are actually the teacher's farmer. If you remember, in those days, we always see them around villages and farmlands, teaching and exposing farmers to new ideas, to fertilization policies and good agronomy practices. Today, there is that dearth of extension workers. But I would say what I have seen in Jigawa State, for instance, just on the wheat program alone, they had trained over 1,700 extension workers for that program alone. We have allocated 40,000 hectares of wheat for Jigawa State. But the other day, the governor came and expressed to us that what they have calculated is 55,000 hectares. But by and large, that is as a result of the commitment the governor and his team had made, and also the provision of extension workers. We have, even at the beginning of the wheat program, the federal government had brought in a Mexican who by name Dr. Marcos Quiñones, who was part of the Norman Borlaug Green Revolution of the 1960s and 70s in Mexico and India on wheat cultivation, where they turned around these countries and became self-sufficient in wheat. Marcos Quiñones and his team were here in November and had the trainers seminar in Zaria, and subsequently those master trainers went back to their states and also trained the extension workers. So these are efforts the government is doing in trying to support the issue of extension. Extension is very vital, just as seeds are also very vital. We're looking at research institutes. We're strengthening research institutes to come up with good varieties of seeds with high yield and short duration of cultivation. So because what we have today, the mantra is really yield per the small land that we have, is to increase the yield. So if you don't have good seeds, and you don't have good fertilization and no good extension, so we will not achieve those yields that we're looking for that will cater our growing population. So for the rice, we have also engaged Dr. Marcos, who is also an agronomist. He is around in this country today as I'm talking to you. And we'll also be here till May, June, when the wet season farming commences. So I quite agree with you. The other day we were engaging with the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy on the use of technology to extend extension services to our farmers. We can use digital platforms, we can use the GSM platforms, the communication platforms, to extend to ideas and it can be specific to a locality in the local language that they understand, and we can use these digital platforms to extend advisory and good agronomy practices to our farmers. So we are working on that, and I quite agree with you. Extension is very key. Without extension, we cannot develop agri potential that we have.
All right, good to hear that. Let's also talk about smuggling. This country is the highest rice producer in Africa, but suffering greatly from smugglers who, after enjoying government credits to cultivate this product, decide to take the rice to neighboring countries. How does the government intend to curb smuggling and hoarding?
Well, you could just see some of the steps that were taken recently. You could see customs have apprehended a lot of commodities being taken out of this country, and they have hit some successes. Just the other day, in just one day, 45 trucks were apprehended in the Ilela axis alone. So everybody is on their own and doing their best in trying to make sure that we curtail this. Like I said, if we're self-sufficient, there is nothing wrong with export. But when it's exported and government and the people of Nigeria do not derive any benefit, then that becomes smuggling, and it's not acceptable.
Right. I'm also very concerned about food storage, which is a national concern. How do we address this problem and ensure that we're able to export yam, for example?
Well, like I said, the key here is food security. We need to secure the land first before we export. Export is good, like I said, it can be an avenue to derive foreign exchange for the country. But what do we do now to take care of the domestic demand? And I think this is the aim of what government is trying to do, and trying to see that we increase production so that we can be self-sufficient and enough to export. We are also looking at collaborations with big-time investors in the agricultural field, where we can incentivize them to produce more and for our food security and also our export potential. Mr. President has given us the go-ahead to engage with the private sector and see how we can produce and secure the land.
Honorable Minister, you and your colleague Aliyu Abdullahi have been advising Nigerians to embrace farming. What are the modalities in place? I mean, out of the 80 million hectares of arable lands, about 50 million remain uncultivated. What's the government's plan to cultivate 500,000 hectares of farmlands kick off?
Well, like I said, you know, the 500,000 you're talking about, we probably would, because we are looking at about 117,000 for the wheat, and then 250,000 for rice. By the time you do the mathematics, and 55,000 for maize, and when we come to wet season and also dry season wheat at the end of the year, we will surpass, I believe, 1 million hectares. So the 500,000, God willing, we are going to double that, and we are working assiduously on seeing that we get good seeds and good inputs, fertilizer, and incentivize the farmers to produce more. What we are looking at today, you see a situation, these are interventions that we do, and these interventions actually have a multiplier effect. By the time you incentivize 10 farmers, for instance, you are indirectly also supporting about 15, 20 farmers along the line. Because you know what the communal type of farming in communities exist, and they as soon as when you give it, especially that we're doing in clusters, we're providing these inputs to clusters and to cooperatives where there could be more than, you could have one farmer registered, but probably about 2-3 farmers are benefiting from the same inputs. So I believe that we will make an impact and I'm very optimistic that we'll make an impact within the shortest possible time.
All right. So like I said earlier, you and your colleague are asking Nigerians to embrace farming. And it's a fact that today's young people are less motivated to engage in farming. How is government going to change this narrative and make farming attractive to young people?
Well, one way is mechanization. I mean, there are implements out there that are friendly to the youths because as it is now, the number one implement in the agricultural space is a hoe. And I keep saying that when you look at a hoe, for instance, you will never find a factory anywhere in this world that manufactures a hoe. Even hoes are manufactured in the blacksmiths of small communities, farming communities. So, like I said, Mr. President has rolled out several programs for tractorization and mechanization, which will become much easier and will be attractive to the youths. Like I said, also we are also looking at digitize the use of technology. Today there are fertilization done by drones. You have pesticides sprayed by drones, and so on and so forth. So even conveyance of produce from one end of the farm to the other are being done by drones. So we are, like I said, we are talking with even Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation in some of these things. In fact, they have a drone now that is user-friendly, that can be applied in the agricultural space. So there are several incentives, and also when you look at how you turn agriculture to business. Let me give you just an instance here. When I was in Hadejia last year in December, we started engaging the local community on how much they can make out of a hectare of wheat. I asked them what is the yield of 1 hectare of wheat, and they rightly said that it's anywhere between 80 bags to 120 bags of 50 kilos. So I just I took the minimum one, which is 80 bags, and I said, how much is the EOP, the estimates of production? How much are you going to spend in a hectare? Like I mentioned earlier, the inputs alone is 360,000 naira for a hectare for wheat. And of course, there are other costs involved: irrigation, farm hands, harvesting, and and other costs that are involved. And they said that it's about 600,000 per hectare. And I said, okay, let's go up a bit and increase it to 700,000. And we increased it to 700,000. And then when you are going to make 80 bags of wheat at the price of 50,000 per bag, that translates to 4 million. Now, by the time you remove your cost to 700, that is 3.3 million, in a matter of 4 months. So what we are saying is that once we make agriculture a business, so that people can make money out of it, not only for subsistence, but for money-making venture, we'll find a lot of youth that will come in and participate. And we are also having programs that will have the inclusion of youth and women in the agricultural space. We're going to roll out the programs very soon.
Right. Honorable Minister, you've rolled out great plans, great programs, great policies, but we know insecurity is a major cause of food shortage in the country. Won't your plans fail without adequate security?
Well, we've been talking with the state governments, we've been talking with the security agencies, and it's an unfortunate event that is going on. But like I said, we have seen drastic reduction of what was the challenge in just a matter of maybe just a year. When you see even my state, for instance, Borno State, there's a huge reduction in the insecurity over there. And this year, even the governor has provided 7 irrigation sites for dry season alone, and it's secured land. And several states have been telling us that there's drastic reduction in the insecurity aspect in the southeast, in the northwest, in the northeast, in the north central, and all over southwest and south-south. So I believe we're going to achieve bountiful harvest once that aspect is taken care of.
All right. We hope as government continues to do everything to mitigate this hardship on citizens, we sincerely hope these efforts materialize in good times and things stabilize as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. I've been speaking with Senator Abubakar Kyari, Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. Thank you so much for coming in politics tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight, but the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke. Good night, everyone.